So, good afternoon, guys. I'm going to switch back here so I can see your questions and comments. Nice to see you all. So, today I want to address this idea of worth trauma. So, my premise with codependency is that codependency is a reaction to something called the discard trauma. The discard trauma is an event we go through repeatedly when we're dealing with what's called the consumer-supply relationship. And that's basically where someone uses us for their benefit and there isn't a reciprocation. They don't care about how we feel. They don't care about what it takes from us for them to get what they want. They're not interested in who we are, our well-being, our happiness, our emotional state. They really don't care about us. They just care about what they get from us. So we're their supply, they're the consumer. Narcissists, toxic people, abusive people, they're going to be the consumer, the codependent, the enabler, the people pleaser, the doormat. They're going to be the one that's going to give them that supply because it has to do with this idea of worth. Okay, so one's intrinsic value in the consumer supply relationship is completely locked into their usefulness to the other person. And this kind of wound drives people to become high performers, overachievers, perfectionists. It drives them to take on responsibilities that they're not qualified for or that they don't even want. It drives them to do things to prove their worthiness. And they're hoping, the big secret hope behind this proving is that somebody will see their value and that will connect with them and then basically mother them in a real serious way. They would take their needs and their feelings very seriously, and then that part of this codependent person could actually mature into their healthy self. So really, what's fundamentally happening here behind this thing called the worth trauma is that we're seeking our value outside of ourselves. That's an important thing to really anchor to really understand, to believe that when you're trying to prove your value, you're trying to demonstrate your goodness, you're trying to be perfect, you're trying to accomplish something. Especially for men, a lot of times it's business performance or it's some sort of sexual, social performance. For women, it's performing in the home, it's being a good mom, it's sometimes it's academic performance, those kinds of things. We are using performance and achievement to compensate for that deep lack of self-worth. Now, this is really where I want to go, because self-worth is something that's really not taught well. It's not understood well. I keep running into this in the material I study, in clients I work with therapists I talk to, videos I watch on YouTube. People don't understand self-worth very well. And so my own experience with this, and in healing my own sense of worth, there's one consistent pattern in my entire experience working with this, and it comes down to this. When our needs are not valued by another person, like a parent, or by a spouse, or by a primary relationship, maybe like a best friend, and this is a chronic experience where our needs are dismissed, ignored, criticized, diminished, denied, attacked. You're too selfish. Why you're too needy. Why are you so sensitive? That kind of thing, the gaslighting there. I found that when we have consistently experienced that, we do not feel worthy, we do not feel valuable, we do not feel like we exist. Our needs, when they are filled, when they are seen, when they are valued by another human being, when that other person takes the time to internalize our experience and say, I see this really matters to you, this is important to you, and I see you, that's when we feel seen, that's when we feel valued, and that's when we start to realize our worth. But if this is not happening, and we're getting this other feedback, this negative feedback about our own self-worth, we're going to conclude that my needs aren't worth it. They're burdens. They're shameful. They're disgusting. They're wrong. And that means I'm wrong. I'm disgusting. I'm a burden. Because our identity with our needs and wants is enmeshed. There isn't really a way to describe it differently. If our needs and wants are completely and constantly or chronically denied or attacked in some way, diminished in some way, shamed, then we're going to internalize that as we are shameful, because those are something that are sacred to us. They're part of us. They're part of who we are, and they're part of how we attempt to connect with the world. So if we've grown up with parents that did not respect this and did not honor it, they were not attuned to it, they didn't care. If you're in a narcissistic system, your parents didn't give a shit about your needs. If you're in a neglectful system, they might have been aware of your needs, but they didn't either have the capacity to meet those needs, the understanding of how to respond to them, or their awareness just got distracted and went somewhere else. So you got neglected. That's called childhood emotional neglect. And we internalize that as I'm not worthy. I'm not worth it. So our sense of self-worth is greatly influenced by the kind of pattern of response we've experienced from other people. And when we've dealt with the discard trauma, with the narcissistic experience, it's a very natural outcome to feel like we're worthless, we're empty, we don't exist, we're invisible, and we're a burden. And now, the big trick here with this is we've got to understand that if you're struggling with rejection, you're struggling with exposure, you're struggling with connection, with building healthy relationships, or struggling with dating healthy people, or having connective experiences with other human beings, it's going to come down to this. It's going to come down to the relationship you've internalized about your needs and wants and about who you are. Because who we are is filtered through how our needs and wants are responded to. That's how we are trained to respond to ourselves. So if I have a need that's chronically rejected, then I'm going to feel like I don't deserve to be loved that way. There's something wrong with me. So we got to understand this relationship if we're actually to appropriately heal it. And this is entirely healable because it is a trauma. It's a state of a looping conclusion, basically, with a huge amount of energy behind it. And so it causes us to freeze. It causes us to panic. It causes us to get very scared about rejection, criticism, failure, mistakes. So if you're in business and you're trying to market yourself, and that could be overwhelming because of mistakes, or you screw up with a client, even in business, your job, if you get petrified about making a mistake, your value has been under attack and it's not been properly nourished and nurtured. Now, the good news here, guys, is this is, like I said a moment ago, healable. You can actually transform this. There's a couple of ways of doing it. The first way of doing it is going through what's called the closure technique. This is a 6-step process that allows us to resolve the trauma by meeting the core need that part of ourself has, and then introducing it to what it really wants, and then giving it what it really wants. This has an extremely high rate of success, around 90% of participants that go through the technique experience a massive amount of relief, change, and closure with their trauma. But the second way to do this is to start meeting our damn need, to be real blunt. And we can do that using what I call the nurture process. This is a process that I teach in the Codependence to Confidence system. And it's a series of guided meditations that get you out of your conscious analytical mind, get you back in your body. And the reason why is because the body needs to be spoken to at its level for it to understand what to do and what to change. So that has to be done through what's called a somatic process, or a felt process. That's kind of the magic with this, because the nurture technique, the nurture process, takes us into that. It allows us to start creating new reference points and new experiences about our needs, so that our needs get filled and the pain that we have been holding on to about the rejection and criticism of our needs is released. And that's how we do it. And there really isn't a way for me to lead you through it on a video like this. And it's a process you have to be prepped for. And so that's why it's part of Codependence to Confidence. The trick here is once we meet our needs become legitimate to us. Our needs become valid to us. We believe our needs. We see their goodness. And we've honored the pain we've gone through with the rejection and criticism of our needs. That's where our confidence, that natural confidence and brilliance just shows up. That's where the magic starts to unfold for us. That's where things like rejection becomes irrelevant. That's where we get more access to what we really, really want. Because I'll tell you from personal experience, I've done a lot of things in life in an attempt to prove myself. And these are things that I didn't want to actually do. I was high on the idea of getting approval, and that masked the deep heaviness and burnout and exhaustion that I'd been living with doing those things. Computers was one of those things. I really enjoyed it, but it became the means to my own sense of beingness, worthiness, and value. And that burned me out really, really fast. And it also made life pretty scary. I mean, if your worth is anchored towards your performance, towards your output, man, every single thing you do becomes terrorizing, because maybe you'll screw up and then what are you worth at that point, right? And but when we actually validate our needs, our sense of intrinsic worth comes alive again, because our intrinsic worth is fed by the nurture of our wants and needs, especially our emotional wants and needs of being seen, having attention, having affection, being protected, being praised, being valued, enjoying time and space with us, that kind of thing. So I want you to think about this. I want you to open up to the idea that if you're dealing with a really powerful, gripping need to prove yourself, that you are terrorized by the idea of being rejected or making a mistake, or that you need to be perfect, you're dealing with the worth trauma, which is part of the discard trauma experience. And do you want to get past that? What would your life look like if you didn't have that? What would you be doing instead? One of my clients, she just recently discovered a completely different path for herself as she started to tap into the idea of something bigger than herself and from a sense of worth. Boom. We'll see where that goes. That's pretty exciting for them. Another client, when she discovered her sense of worth, she literally stopped tolerating toxic people and just started shedding them. She's like, I don't need this anymore. I'm done. So relationships, toxic family members, toxic associations, gone. And now she's like, now I have all this space to do something amazing with. And what she's doing is she's relaxing. She's enjoying her present day life. Is that something you've been looking for? If you're actually looking for your genuine purpose in life and you're dealing with the worth trauma, you're going to have a hell of a time getting to that, because you're always going to be chasing that carrot of approval. So this worth trauma affects all of us in some fashion, where we're chasing that holy grail of approval, right? And I'll be worth enough if I get a business that does this, or get this career, or get this person to love me, or get that person to like me, or change this about myself. When in all we really actually need, guys, is to start valuing our pain, honoring our needs and wants, and allowing ourselves to become connected back with that internal part of ourselves so that we can express ourselves. So I'm going to talk a little more about how we accomplish this tomorrow. But I want you to think about this. And are you coming from the worth trauma? Are you seeking approval? Does rejection terrify you? Does disappointing other people terrify you? Do you give up your needs and absorb other people's preferences? Are you stuck in cycles of trying to please people while also being secretly terrified of being exposed, as an imposter syndrome, that kind of thing? They're all rooted from this idea that our needs and wants aren't valuable, right? So if you want help with that, just reach out. You can apply to the Codependency to Confidence system. You can also apply to the Get Closure Now system. We'll be starting that in January. I'll put those links in the description below. Guys, let me know what you got out of this video today. I appreciate it. Thank you for being a part of the community here on Facebook, both in the Thriving Beyond Codependency community, also on YouTube, and also on my private wall, because this is where I make them. And thank you guys for your support. And you guys have a great day. And get out there, kick some ass, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay. Have a great day, guys.